Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So today I've got a free hit team going into game week 4. I know a few of you are on free hits, so I do hope it helps you out. I've had a look at all the data so far this season, and I've created some charts that'll hopefully help me explain my thoughts. And if it helps you out, please do subscribe if you're new. I am closing in on 500 subscribers, which would be a really cool milestone. And thanks to everyone for the support so far. So let's take a look at the team. So as we get a look at goal, I'm going to go for David Raya this game week. He is the cheapest way into the Arsenal's defence, and at 5.5 million, I think he is worth the price. Obviously, he's the most expensive goalkeeper, or joint most expensive, but the fact that he plays Nottingham Forest at home, I think is really good. Forest don't score a ton of goals anyway, and the fact that they've just got rid of Nuno, their manager, it does create a bit of uncertainty around them. And I think Arsenal are just a really good defensive team anyway. I think for me, Raya is a really good pick this week. Because it's a free hit, you don't have to invest all your money in your goalkeeper long term. You're just targeting him for one game week, and then you get your original goalkeeper back afterwards. When we take a look at the chart, obviously the chart it looks quite strange. It's not as scattered as it would be normally because we've only had 3 games this season so far. But Raya does rank pretty highly, not only for clean sheets, but also saves per game. So the fact that he is the goalkeeper who's getting the joint most clean sheets and he's making, a lot of saves as well. He's averaging an extra save point per game. It really does bode well for this single game week. So into defence we go, and I have gone for a few premium defenders here. My main defender is Van Dijk. I think that Burnley fixture, even though it's away, and we've talked about how you know, uh, promoted teams are going to be a bit better at home. I don't necessarily see it being an issue for Liverpool. We know that Van Dijk is a really good defender and he's getting a lot of defensive contributions, averaging 15 per game as well. Shah and Gehi round out the defence with Robinson and Van der Ven on the bench. I think any of these defenders could get rotated in, but I think the fact that, Gehi and Shah play at home really does benefit their selection here. Now, when we take a look at the chart, I'm taking a look at defenders priced at 5.5 million and above, those premium defenders, because if you're getting them in on a free hit, you want to go for some premium defenders you think are going to score you those extra points. A cheaper defender, you might be hoping for a clean sheet. These are where the points can really come in handy. So we're looking at points per game and defensive contributions. And we can see that Van Dijk and Share are ranking pretty highly for both. They're not getting the most points per game, but then you look at someone like a Timber. I believe he scored 24 points in one game, so his average is going to be high. I wouldn't expect it to be there at the end of the season. I think with a free hit as well, you do have to just isolate the fixtures they've got. Like we said, Share plays Wolves at home, so you would expect his average points to be a lot higher or a little bit higher than they are currently compared to if he was on these points and then he was playing Liverpool away. Say, so you have to sort of look at where these charts are going to be in a week or 2 weeks' time. Van Dijk is clearly leading the way in terms of defensive contributions, and while Share is kind of like third, fourth out of this selection for that. I do prefer him ahead of Tarkowski because of the fixture. So when we get into the midfielders, we can see there's quite some out there picks, and I think that's okay for a free hit because, like we said with the goalkeepers, you don't need these players in long term. You're just using it for one week to try and get that extra boost to your score, and it's why I've gone for players like Iwobi. Now, Leeds at home, I think, is a really good fixture. Leeds have some midfielders, defensive midfielders, out at the moment. And Iwobi is a key player for Fulham. He has got one assist already so far this season. And I think for the price at 6.5 million to get an attacking return every 3 games is totally fine. I think that's something that we do need to, kind of focus on and be aware of that that is a good return for a player of that price. And he is the sort of player who can get a couple of attacking returns in any given game week. I've gone for the double Liverpool midfield as well. I think that Burnley game is absolutely fine. I wouldn't be too worried about Gakpo's minutes right now or Salah, even with Isak joining. Isak isn't ready to start. I would even be surprised if he came off the bench. in this game. So I'm not concerned at all of these players' minutes. Maybe in the long term, I might be concerned of, say, Gakpo's minutes. But again, I don't need to worry about that right now because it's only a free hit. I have gone for Alanga as well. With Gordon still suspended, I think he is a really good option. They are struggling for attacking options, even though they've made a couple of transfers. It's a bit like Isak. I wouldn't necessarily expect them to start straight away. They've not been playing a lot of football, haven't Visser and Voldemarthen. So I do think that Ilanga is totally fine for 1 week. Grealish is on the bench. It's your preference as to whether you start him if this is your team. I think it's good, a good option to start, but I think I would expect Grealish to be on my bench if I was, free hitting with this team. But what a great first bench option. So when we take a look at the charts, we can see that all of these players, rank pretty highly. So these are kind of your mid-tier midfielders because we know Salah is doing well, right? So or has the potential to do well. So he's an easy pick. And then there's not really much going on around the 10 million price for midfielders. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at bonus points and expected goal involvements for midfielders. So these aren't necessarily their um, actual returns. This is what they are, supposed to be getting, whether they've got that or not. So we can see Grealish is at the top in terms of expected goal involvements. We know he's got 4 assists in 2 games, and that shows because he is kind of overperforming his expected goals. He's only supposed to be, a 1.5 to 2. And I think we can say the same for Iwobi and Gakpo. The fact that they are high on bonus points and, don't necessarily have the highest goal involvement shows that when they do return, we can see that they're having a significant impact on their team's scores. So I think they are good for 1 game week. We know that if they do get a return, that they're going to be having bonus points coming with them. Alanga, like we said, isn't doing as well. He's towards the bottom of the chart, but it's a small sample size as well. And I do think the fixture and the squad situation at Newcastle really does play into it. So onto the strikers here, and we can see that I've gone for João Pedro, Mateta, and Richarlison. Now, one thing I would be aware of is players coming back from international duty, and this is a potential weak point for these strikers because João Pedro and Richarlison are both playing away in Brazil international duty at the moment, and we don't know how they're going to return or when they're going to return, whether that's going to be ready for this game week. With long flights, it is difficult for players who are traveling from a far distance. When we take a look at the strikers, so again, we've gone for bonus points and expected goal involvements for the forwards here. We can see that these three are quite varied, really. We can see Haaland in the top right. He's obviously, performing really well at the moment this season compared to the other forwards. But João Pedro is racking up those bonus points and is, kind of overachieving in his expected goal involvement as well. Richarlison is that mid sort of tier, and Mateta is at the bottom, but hasn't really had too many opportunities yet. And it would be interesting to see, how he does playing Sunderland at home. It's a great fixture, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got a goal. The fact that if he's not scoring loads so far this season kind of shows that he might start scoring soon because he is a good striker that's maybe underperforming his expected goal involvements right now, and that is does have a strong likelihood to return to the mean sooner rather than later. So again, Richarlison, I know that Spurs have brought some new forwards, but like everything, in a free hit, I wouldn't be concerned. I think if you were saying, should I get him in on a free transfer, I'd probably be saying no. But the fact that it's a free hit just for 1 week risk is totally fine. The only worry would be that both him and João Pedro might be at risk of a benching just because they've come back from international duty far away. So overall, we can see that the strengths of this free hit team is that it targets the weaker fixtures. That's the same in any free hit, right? So like whenever you use your free hit team, one of the strengths will be it targets the fixtures that you want it to target. I think another good strength is that it can avoid international break issues. So let's say you've got the player like Cole Palmer who's possibly injured and you don't quite know how he's going to recover and you kind of want him for the long term, but you don't want to transfer him out just to transfer him back in. A free hit can just delay that sort of transfer, give you a bit more information. It's a little bit risky to do that though, because there's a chance that At any point in the season, you're going to have some injuries that maybe you're not sure of. So if you want to use it now combined with the international break, I think it is a good time to do that. But I would just be aware that you can't do that just endlessly. Some of the weaknesses are that it does use your free hit. So you've played that chip now and you don't have that same flexibility. I know chips are maybe a bit less important this season because we've got more of them, but I think being only game week 4, if you've already used like your free hit and say your bench boost or your triple captain, you are kind of using a lot of chips in a couple of game weeks, and there is a long stretch before you get access to those chips again. So just try and look at your long-term plan. And I would just be aware of, like we say, those long flights for players who have international duty. If you are thinking of transferring them in, check where they've been playing, when their last game was, and just sort of kind of roughly estimate, keep your ear out for team news because you don't want to be using your free hit only to find out that your players are on the bench, even if you do have a good option like a Jack Grealish, because the chances are if João Pedro or Richarlison are on the bench for their team, it could easily come on for 10 minutes, and that is just not going to be the most productive use of your free hit chip. So let me know what you think in the comments. It'd be really good to hear your thoughts. Are you on a free hit? If you are, let me know what your team looks like. Are there any players that you think I should be avoiding in this team and that you would replace? And if so, who with? And yeah, hopefully you're having a good break over the international week and looking forward to game week 4. And I will see you in the next one.